A man walks into a pharmacy, buys a condom, then walks out of the store laughing hysterically. The pharmacist thinks this is weird, but there are no laws preventing weird people from buying condoms. Who knows? Maybe it's a good thing. The next day, the same man comes back to the store, purchases yet another condom, and once again, he leaves the store laughing wildly. This piques the interest of the pharmacist. What could be so funny after buying a condom anyway? So he tells his clerk, if that guy ever comes back, I want you to follow him to see where he goes. Sure enough, the next day the same man is back. He buys the thing and again starts cracking up with laughter, then leaves. The pharmacist tells his clerk to go follow the guy. About an hour later, the clerk comes back to the store. Did you follow him? Where did he go? Asks the pharmacist. The clerk replies, your house. Merchant, captain, and several of his officers were returning to the ship after a big night ashore. As they climbed the gangway, the captain threw up all over himself. Pointing to an apprentice seaman above him, he shouted, give that man 5 days in the brig for vomiting on me. The following morning, the captain was checking the log and saw that the young seaman had been sentenced to 10 days and asked the chief mate why. Well, sir, when we got you undressed, we found that he also shit your pants. Loved to speed around the nursing home in her wheelchair, taking corners on one wheel and getting up to maximum speed on the long corridors. Because the poor woman was one sandwich short of picnic, the other residents tolerated her, and some of the males actually joined in. One day, Ethel was speeding up one corridor when a door opened and Mad Mickey stepped out with his arm outstretched. Stop! He shouted in a firm voice. Have you got a license for that thing? Ethel fished around in her handbag and pulled out a Kit Kat wrapper. Then held it up to him. Okay, he said, and away Ethel sped down the hall. As she took the corner near the TV lounge on one wheel, Weird Harold popped out in front of her and shouted, stop! Have you got proof of insurance? Ethel dug into her handbag, pulled out a drink coaster and held it up to him. Harold nodded and said, carry on, ma'am. As Ethel neared the final corridor before the front door, Crazy Craig stepped out in front of her, stark naked, holding a very sizable erection in his hand. Oh, good grief, said Ethel. Not the breathalyzer again. Salesman is going door to door. At one house, a snotty little brat answers the door. Tell you what, he says to the salesman, I can persuade my parents to buy pretty much anything. If you can do everything I can do, I'll talk them into buying something. If you lose, then you give $10. Figuring that there's no way a 9-year-old brat could outsmart him, the salesman agrees to the deal. Immediately, the kid climbs up the drain pipe and hops onto the flat roof. The salesman does exactly the same. The kid then runs across the roof, does a triple cartwheel and lands in the back garden, with the salesman following suit. Then the kid runs to where his teenage sister is sunbathing topless. He rushed over to her and kissed her on the left breast. Not to be outdone, the salesman leaps over and does the same. The kid then gropes both her sister's tits. So does the salesman. Then the brat pulls out his dick, wraps it round his little finger and says, where's my $10? The woman was in a coma. Nurses were in her room giving her a sponge bath when one of them noticed that there was a response on the monitor whenever her crotch was touched. They went to her husband and explained what happened, telling him, crazy as this sounds, but maybe a little oral stuff will do the trick and bring her out of the coma. The husband was skeptical, but they assured him they'd close the curtains for privacy. The hobby finally agreed and went to his wife's room. After a few minutes, the woman's monitor flatlined. No pulse, no heart rate, nothing. The nurses ran into the room. The husband, who was standing beside his wife's bed, pulling up his pants, said, I think she choked. Golfer hit his drive on the first hole 300 yards right down the middle. When it came down, however, it hit a sprinkler and the ball went sideways into the woods. He was angry, but he went into the woods and hit a very hard 2-iron, which hit a tree and bounced back straight at him. It hit him in the temple and killed him. He was at the pearly gates and St. Peter looked at the big book and said, "I see you were a golfer. Is that correct?" "Yes, I am," he replied. St. Peter then said, "Do you hit the ball a long way?" The golfer replied, "You bet. After all, I got here in 2, didn't I?" Nuns were talking. The first nun said, "I was cleaning in Father's room the other day, and do you know what I found? A bunch of nutty magazines." "What did you do?" the other nuns asked. "Well, of course I threw them in the trash." The second nun said, "Well, I can top that. I was in Father's room putting away laundry and I found a bunch of condoms." "Oh my," gasped the other nuns. "What did you do?" "I poked holes in all of them," she replied. The third nun fainted. A man goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, you've got to help me. I cannot get an erection for anything, and it is ruining my marriage." The doctor thinks for a little while and then says, "I got just a solution for you. Go home tonight and wait until your wife is sound asleep. Then reach over and put your fingers between her legs and get some of the juice and rub it under your nose. Keep on doing that and it should get you an erection." So the guy thanks him and hurries on home. Later on that night, he's lying in bed and his wife is fast asleep. So he reaches over and starts rubbing the juice under his nose. After about a minute, he can feel himself getting hard. Excited, he shakes his wife awake and says, "Look, honey, look what I've got." And she replies, "You woke me up at 2 in the morning to show me your bloody nose?" Once upon a time, a man was walking down the street. He saw an ancient oil lamp in an ash can, and thinking of the Aladdin legend, he picked up and rubbed it. Sure enough, out popped a genie. "Master, I shall now grant you one wish." The man spoke, his eyes bulging with desire. "I want to be rock hard and get plenty of ass for the rest of my life." The genie obediently turned him into a toilet. A 25-year-old man went to his doctor's office to get a sperm count. The doctor gave the man a jar and said, "Take this jar home and bring me back a sample tomorrow." The next day, the 75-year-old man reappeared at the doctor's office and gave him the jar, which was as clean and empty as on the previous day. The doctor asked what had happened and the man explained, "Well, doc, it's like this. First I tried with my right hand but nothing happened. Then I tried with my left hand but still got nothing. Then I asked my wife for help. She tried with her right hand but nothing happened. Then she tried with her left but still nothing happened. She even tried with her mouth. First with the teeth in, then with the teeth out. And still nothing happened. We even called up the lady next door and she tried with both hands. And her mouth too. But there was nothing doing." The doctor was shocked. "You asked your neighbor?" The old man replied, "Yeah, but no matter what we tried, we couldn't get the stupid jar open."